All right, happening today, members of the ballpark community get to discuss what will happen next, what will happen in that area, that neighborhood, after the departure of the Salt Lake Bees.
The baseball team announced that they were moving to South Jordan in January. Then Mayor Aaron Mendenhall has called on ideas from the community on how they can use this 13-acre space left behind to better the neighborhood.
Well, the mayor and the city council will be at the meeting tonight, a member of the council, which will focus on sharing different ideas, answering questions about the future. That's happening at Public Coffee at 6 p.m.
It'll be interesting to hear the ideas.
Yeah.
What can they do with that space, and how much of it do they want to keep? And
13 acres. That's a lot of space.
Ballpark. Yeah. All right, you might be feeling a little extra tired. Okay, we are back. Welcome back, everybody. We continue our coverage of the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank here as we're taking a look at what the stock market is doing, resulting in the largest bank failure the U.S. has seen in 15 years. SVB is a top lender to many startup companies, particularly in the tech industry. That means Utah's Silicon Slopes is watching the fallout very closely.
Sometimes it's a stretch to see, okay, how does this impact Utah? Let's bring it close to home. No stretch today because it does impact Utah and the companies here. So let's talk about it with Boyd Matheson. He is joining us here on the desk to try to break this down. I'm trying to get us to.
There we go. There's Boyd.
There we are. It's amazing.
Right. Here's Boyd Matheson. So we're going to talk about this. What does this mean? I know we could talk for a half an hour if we were on your radio show. We don't have much time, but break this down for us. Was this a run on the banks that triggered something here?
Yeah, it's basically when you get all of that investment, really high amount. So these are not like mom and pops and having small amounts that are likely to stay inside the bank. Once the run begins, these are people who have major investments, a lot of them big companies, big startup companies. And so once that starts to get pulled, they're pulling out those are like big chunks. It's not like It's a Wonderful Life, a few dollars here and there. These are big dollars.
Tied you over. That's not what we're talking about.
That's right. And that's why the president stepped in and saying, look, we're going to ensure the taxpayers, even beyond what we always talk about, that FDIC.
Yeah.
Never always wonder what that means. This is what it's for, is to protect those moms and pops that have, investments. Maybe they have over $250,000, and the president is saying, you can have confidence in this. We're taking care of this. Okay. He was also very clear. This was important from the president to say, we are not covering the investors. The investors knew they were taking a risk, and that's how capitalism works. So the president was very clear. This is not a full-on bailout like we've seen in the past. We may still end up there, but the president was very clear to say, we're protecting the taxpayers today. We're not protecting the investors.
Let's talk about how this impacts Utah. So we just heard from Shelby Lofton at that meeting that took place at that town hall that about half of the companies along our own Silicon Slopes are invested in this bank. How do all those companies, how are they feeling? Are they okay?
It looks like everyone's okay in the short term. The interesting thing for a lot of our startups and Silicon Slopes type companies in the state of Utah is they're dependent on those kinds of investments to grow, to expand. And so that's what I'm watching in the days and weeks ahead. Is there a comfort level investing in those startup companies the way we have been? We've sort of had this little bubble burst now, and so it'll be interesting to see if other banks pull back their investment in some of those higher risk tech startups.
Let's talk about the interest rates as well. It's funny you mentioned comfort level. So much that happens on Wall Street and Main Street is, how do you feel about buying things? It really is feelings, right? Yeah. It's how do you feel in your confidence level?
I don't feel good right now.
And that's the thing. Does lack of confidence affect the economy as much as the raising or falling of interest rates and the inflation out there? Because people, despite the interest rates, people are still buying. We've had a strong economy.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to look at it that way because it is a feeling. It's and that's been the hardest thing for the administration. President Biden has tried to tout jobs number and lots of positive things, which he should, but there's a disconnect between what the American people are feeling around the kitchen table in terms of their confidence in the economy. And often the recession word is usually a self-fulfilling prophecy as people start to feel that angst and frustration. We know there's already some rumblings. The Fed is scheduled to meet next Wednesday. Most people anticipated they would raise that interest rate again, trying to curb inflation by a quarter to a half. Now there's rumblings maybe they don't do anything at all. Again, trying to give some ease to the American people to say, no, keep your confidence high. And again, it's a messaging challenge for the administration because what they're talking about and what the American people are feeling are not in alignment, and that is where the recession starts to come in.
I imagine you'll be talking quite a bit about this on your show today.
We will be breaking this down. There's a whole lot of components to it, and I think it's important to keep in mind, one, that things are solvent. You don't need to worry about your bank today, and the president's done the right thing there in terms of that protection for taxpayers, not for investors. That's an important distinction, I think, as we go through the day today.
I love coming to you because you this stuff, and it's helpful to help me feel calm that we're going to be okay. Our companies are going to be okay here in Utah. Boyd, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Coming up in the next half hour, we'll go live to
Silicon Slopes after a very tense weekend. The state launches a new strategic plan to address homelessness. Straight ahead, the main goals of that plan.
The biggest local food drive in the state.
TV.com.
New strategy to help Utah's homeless rolled out today. New specialist Jed Boll taking a closer look at 5 goals here, just published by the Utah Homelessness Council. All right, Jed, how are they going to help out?
Mike, the sharp focus here is to get people experiencing homelessness into permanent homes and to keep them there. 2 years ago, the legislature charged the Utah Homelessness Council and the Utah Office of Homeless Services with creating a statewide strategic plan to minimize homelessness. They worked with Home Base, a consultant that compiled a comprehensive study of homelessness throughout Utah. They interviewed community leaders, individuals experiencing homelessness, and other stakeholders. The Homelessness Council approved their plan last month.
One of the statements in the plan is that we want to have homelessness become rare, brief, and non-recurring.
The goals are to increase accessible and affordable permanent housing for people experiencing homelessness, increase access to supportive services and case management, expand homeless prevention efforts by increasing coordination, resources, and affordable housing, target housing resources and supportive services, and promote coordination across multiple systems to support people experiencing homelessness. Coming up at 6:30, the next steps for implementation of this plan. For Live at 5, I'm Jed Boll.
Jed, thank you. Right now, the Utah Food Bank is...
The state has a new strategic plan to address homelessness. Coming up, the main goals of that plan.
KSL-5 News.
Yeah, it's a great cause. All right, thank you, Shara. Utah Homelessness Council today launching the state's new strategic plan to address homelessness statewide. The focus here is to get those experiencing homelessness into some permanent housing.
As new specialist Jed Boll shows us, the state has 5 goals it plans to implement to minimize homelessness.
2 years ago, the state legislature charged the Utah Homelessness Council and the Utah Office of Homeless Services with creating a statewide strategic plan to minimize homelessness. It's a data-driven plan aimed at improving lives in permanent homes.
What we have is maybe not something that everybody likes perfectly, but we have a balanced plan.
They worked with Home Base, a consultant that did a comprehensive study of homelessness throughout Utah. Home Base interviewed community leaders, individuals experiencing homelessness, and other stakeholders.
And it's an aggressive plan, and it's really going to take a lot of effort for us as a council and as an office and as providers to meet the goals of our strategic plan.
The Homelessness Council approved the plan last month.
One of the statements in the plan is that we want to have homelessness become rare, brief, and non-recurring.
The goals are to increase accessible and affordable permanent housing for people experiencing homelessness across the state, increase access to supportive services and case management, expand homeless prevention efforts by increasing coordination, resources, and affordable housing, target housing resources and supportive services, and promote coordination across multiple systems to support people experiencing homelessness.
And it's based on housing. It's based on prevention. Prevention's a big part of where we need to focus. And it's focused on services and coordination.
Coordination across departments in the state and coordination across state and local governments.
It only works if we all work together. This is a vital journey, and this strategic plan will move us forward.
Niederhauser says that they have the legislative funding that they need this year, but they will need a dedicated funding stream to fully implement the plan in the years ahead. For KSL-5 News, I'm Jed Bowl.
All right, Jed, thank you.
All right, Kevin, join us right now.